Episode 9, Our Favorite Freeware.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Visionary Variety Podcast. This week we're going to talk about some really awesome free programs that we have all found and used and loved over the years. And we hope that you guys will learn something and pick up some really great programs that maybe you've been looking for and not have to pay a dime for them. But before we get into that, let's talk about a few things that have happened this past week, some stuff that we've watched and seen. Nate, what did you watch your movie recently?
I saw Pacific Rim Uprising, guys. You definitely need to see this. For those that love the movie, the first one, this is like that, but better.
Wow.
Honestly, I want to see it again and own it. So,
were you literally on the edge of your seat or just figuratively?
Well, I guess figuratively. I was literally laying back in my recliner. So,
I see. I don't know what that means. Angela, what about you? Seen anything new lately?
It's not particularly newish, but I finally started to watch Dragon Ball Super, which is a big deal for me since I grew up with Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. So
I'm ashamed that I haven't seen Dragon Ball Super. I really want to watch it, but I just haven't.
I know, yeah. I've been holding out for watching the dub version online, and for the longest time, it hasn't been on like anywhere be able to watch the dub, but apparently it came out on Funimation's website like a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
So I started
free or
I started a free trial
okay
subscription on their site, which gives me 14 days to watch whatever I want for free. So I'm just gonna try to binge watch as much as I can.
Time to binge.
Yeah.
Well, they just finished. Didn't they just finish the first season? It's like 130 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a first season or what, because I know they've had multiple story arcs within like those 130 odd episodes, but.
No, I think they've stopped what basically equates to a season, and then there's going to be a movie, which is just the trailer came out for, and then they're going to continue again with the show. So you got about 100 plus episodes to watch. You better get started.
I know.
14
well,
days.
The dub hasn't gone like that far yet, but there's quite a bit to the dub that's come out so far. So yeah, I definitely have plenty to binge watch for sure.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
for a diehard Dragon Ball Z fan, is it worth it after all the hype?
I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, the very beginning of the show is actually kind of an extended recap of the most recent two movies that came out. So they're kind of like just doing a retell of that right now, but I'm still enjoying it. Like, there's been several times where I've been watching the show and just like I'm busting out a big grin on my face because it's just taking me back to when I was a kid, and I'm just like, I'm eating this up. So I'm enjoying it a lot.
I'll take whatever I can get.
It's really good though.
What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I rented Jumanji, the new one, and I guess you could say the remake, reboot. I don't know. It was really fun. It was funny. It was actually, I'm sorry, it's not a remake or reboot. It's kind of a sequel because it does include stuff from the previous movie.
Oh, I didn't know
It picks
that.
up where the last movie left off. So the last movie, apparently, the Jumanji game like washes up onto a beach. I think. My wife mentioned it, but I didn't recall that. And in this very start of the new movie, it's on a beach, and someone finds it in the 90s.
Interesting.
Wow.
So it is a sequel, I guess.
Nice.
But it was very enjoyable. It was silly. It's gimmicky. There's funny gags and stuff happening. Dwayne Johnson is awesome as always. Besides a few cheesy character building scenes, which are kind of necessary and maybe purposely cheesy, it's very fun. It's a fun adventure with some really cool visuals and cheap laughs. And then I also started last night the second season of Into the Badlands, which is a super cool. If you like kung fu movies, if you like post-apocalyptic settings and like really good martial arts scenes, you're going to love this show. And on top of that, this show, you got to just watch it for the visuals because it is videographed. I could say photographed. It's shot basically in a way that a movie is shot. I have a friend that actually did some of the crane camera jib work for the show. So he sent me pictures of it like from behind the scenes and stuff that he was doing. And he told me that the way that they plan each scene and shot and camera angle and all the lighting is just like they plan a movie. So it's kind of shot way more in depth than the typical TV show is. And you can tell, I mean, the visuals are so good and the locations are gorgeous. The fight scenes are really good and the costumes are great too. So just all around, it's really cool. There is some a bit gratuitous violence, a lot of stabbing and blood squirting. I mean, the first episode, there was like pints of blood just scored everywhere, just from various fights and stabs and stuff. So,
so basically, like Marvel's version of like Daredevil and all that stuff, all nasty and gory. And
worse than that. It's like you see, you see the close up of the knife sticking through the guy's neck or whatever. It's right in your face, and there's blood everywhere.
Oh, that's great.
Like they probably had like 3 graphic artists just doing the CGI blood squirts.
And what rated is this TV show?
I don't know what it's rated. Yeah, so it's very well done. Quality visuals are awesome. There's some violence in there. FYI.
Watch out, kitties.
So that's it for me. So let's get on to our software. So I want to actually go first because I've got a list of specific programs that are kind of aimed at photographers, but not limited to. If you do graphic design, 3D, this will also apply to you. I love Freeware. I grew up basically using the computer a lot during the day. I was homeschooled. My homeschool curriculum was on the computer. So during my downtime, I was on the computer still, and I used a lot of programs to make stuff, and I found a lot of free stuff. I did pirate programs early on, and I stopped pretty early on too. I know. Gasp. Yeah, convictions and things like that. So I dumped that, and therefore I had to find the alternative with which I could have a clear conscience. Back in those days, freeware was very limited. There was not a lot of good programs out there, but in the past maybe 5 to 10 years, there have been some great programs that have been produced and shared generously to the public without charge. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And freeware has a special place in all the careers because honestly, professional programs can cost a lot, relatively. Mm-hmm. And, it can be intimidating to buy and use these really big name and large scale programs if you're a beginner or if you're even a hobbyist and you're really not sure if this is going to be your thing. You don't know if you can make money yet. You don't know if you're any good at, whatever it is, whether it's graphic design, video editing, photography. So freeware is a really nice introductory step into, whatever the field is you want to get into. So that's kind of the way I see freeware is it's not a long-term goal. It's a good introduction to learn something, to kind of learn to ask the right questions and learn to learn really. And because the things you're going to learn in freeware programs usually are going to still apply to the big programs that you can spend money on later. So, if you feel like you're hitting it off with whatever it is you're doing with these programs and you need more control, you need to work faster, that's where you're going to get to the point where you may need to purchase some professional software like Adobe or, what have you. And we'll talk about that later. But freeware is great because it does fill a void. And, even though I make money off of my photography and other work, I use a number of free programs to kind of fill in the gaps in between programs and to do very specific tasks. Mm-hmm. And they help me a lot. They speed up my workflow. They make my life easier and things like that. So let's get started. So I'll go first. My first program that I love is called the NIK Collection, and that's NIK Collection. So this is a set of, I think, 6 different programs made for photography editing that was actually freeware to begin with. I think it costed a little bit of money, but then Google bought it, and Google offered it for free.
Oh, Google.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for the people who paid for NIK Collection originally because they're like, great, thanks a lot, Google. Yeah. Google offers this for free. You can find it anywhere and is basically a set of different programs that do specific editing tasks. So for instance, we've got, there's a program called Analog Effects, Color Effects, Define, HDR Effects, Sharpener, Silver Effects, and Viveza. So those are all different actual standalone programs within this set of programs that do specific things. So like one of them is for black and white. Mm-hmm. Analog is for film looks. HDR Effects is for HDR. Sharpener, obviously sharpening. So they're not all, it would be cool if they were crammed into one program. That'd be nice, but they're not. Yeah. And these actually, I think most of them come with a plugin version that can work within Photoshop. So like if I'm in Photoshop, I can trigger or open the plugin of, Define, and I can do I think it's noise reduction, and then I can bring it back to Photoshop, and it's pretty quick.
That's really cool.
Yep. And my favorite program, honestly, is the only one that I use out of this group of programs. I could probably get a lot more out of these, but I just use one of them right now, and it's HDR HDR FX Pro 2, and it's awesome. It's basically, I use it to make my HDR photographs. What HDR is basically high dynamic range. Is a fancy way for saying a bunch of images crammed into one. So if I'm taking a shot of a beautiful sunset or a cool building, I'm actually going to take 5 or 7 images all at different exposures, and I load them into HDR FX Pro, the program, and it gets the best parts of each picture and crams it into one final image, which is an HDR photo. So if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's really beautiful and really interesting to look at. So I like that little program there. But Nik Collection is an awesome set of programs for free. My next one is Irfan View. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's IRFAN View. I always just call it Irfan View.
It's a fun name.
That's how Will Smith pronounces it. You know how he pronounces Earth? That's what it is.
You're killing me. I was like, Will Smith uses Irfan View?
He named it.
You got me. Welcome to Irfan View. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Will Smith. We love you.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Had to put that in there.
Couldn't resist.
So Irfan View is another interesting little all-in-one program that basically can do a bunch of specific tasks for photos. Again, I really only use one feature, which I'm probably hurting myself. I could probably do more with it, but right now I only use the batch processing. And what that is once you open the program, if you hit the letter B, you can load any number of images, and you can do the exact same changes to all of them at once. So what I use it for is resizing my images to a web size. I can shrink them down, and then also I add my logo on top of them. I can add _blog behind all the file names, and I can put them in a specific folder. It's really cool. When you open up the advanced window, you can see all these changes. I mean, you can add sharpness. You can make them black and white. You can flip them left and right. You can do all kinds of stuff to infinite numbers of photos with one click, and that's amazing. So when I finish my photo shoots, I export them to a folder, full size, and then I do a batch process to all of those, and I put them in like a blog folder or a web folder. And yeah, saves tons of time. I mean, literally doing that one by one in Photoshop would take me like 30 minutes to an hour. Ain't nobody got time for that. So Photoshop can do batch processing, but it's nowhere near as intuitive and quick as this. So, sometimes freeware does things better than the big programs. My next thing is Evernote. You guys ever heard of Evernote?
I have.
It's basically a note-taking program with cloud connectivity and an app version as well as a browser version. So in Evernote, you have notes and then you have notebooks. So a notebook is kind of like a folder of notes. And so a note is a glorified text document, which can have anything from, links, texts, images, clippings from a website or snapshots of things. You can, of course, do all the formatting you can in Word. You can keyword things so you can search for them later in a quicker way, organizing them. It's really great. So I literally have over 1,000 notes now. I've been using Evernote for about 3 years. And almost every day of my day job has a specific note so I can look back in time and I can say, remember what I did or what I didn't do.
Yeah.
When I have creative ideas, I add them to a note. If I do a model call and I'm asking for, hey, I'm looking for, African models for this look, I can just put all their names in a list. I'll never forget them because they're right there. And I've got all kinds of stuff for my business that I use every day. So I really couldn't do either of my jobs very well without Evernote. I love it. So definitely check into that if you are, if you like to make lists, if you need to keep things organized, write down ideas on the fly, keep track of stuff, use Evernote. It's awesome. My next program is GIMP. GIMP is open source freeware image editor. I'm not going to say it's an alternative to Photoshop, but it kind of is. I love GIMP. I used it for years. Before I went into the professional world of using Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, I had GIMP, and I probably used it for about 3 years, and I made money off of this program, and I didn't pay anything for it. So I used it to edit all my photo shoots for about 2 or 3 years. And it's cool because GIMP can do layers. It has, filters and effects just like Photoshop does. It has brushes. It has retouching tools like cloning. I think it has healing by now. You can also use it for graphic design and other simple image manipulation tasks like making textures and, tiling things and just adding text on top of stuff, things like that. It's pretty versatile, but it's not, it doesn't have non-destructive editing like Photoshop does, which means I can't apply, a curves adjustment and then go back and change that curve. So when you add a curves adjustment, it renders itself into the image and it's there. You can't undo it, or you can't change it once it's done unless you undo and go back to before it. So, there's that. It's a destructive editor, but and when you understand that, there's a lot of stuff it can do.
Yeah.
And GIMP actually kind of ties into my next program because I mentioned textures and image manipulation. A lot of people use GIMP to prepare textures for Blender, which is my next program. You guys heard of Blender?
I have.
I've heard of it, but I've never used it whatsoever.
Well, that's okay. A lot of people don't because it's a little confusing at first. Blender is a 3D modeling, rendering, and animation program. So basically, Blender, you can make 3D models. You can render. You can download models offline for free, and have fun with those. You can add lights. You can add textures. You can build whole scenes. You can add camera movement. You can make animations. If you're ever bored one day, you want to watch something cool, and if you like computer graphics or cartoons, I encourage you to go to YouTube and type in Blender 3D demo reels or Blender 3D like short films, something like that, and you'll find all these amazing just movies, short movies, and shows and animations that people have made with Blender, and it is impressive. I mean, I've seen photorealistic stuff made with Blender. So if you have the time to learn it, and if you have the willpower to really push yourself and keep getting better and better at something, you can make some incredible movie quality, Hollywood quality stuff with Blender. A way that I use it for a few different things, but one of my biggest things is I use it to make props and objects and pieces for my photo composites. So like one of the popular things I've used it for is I made lightsabers. I made custom lightsabers in Blender. Then I would take in a real photo that I took, from a photo shoot. I put it behind it, and I would mimic the lighting, the color, the perspective, and the angle in my photo. Yeah. And I can add a lightsaber into someone's hand where they were originally holding, a flashlight or something like a placeholder. Maybe a dowel rod or something from Lowe's, which I've done. And I swap it out, I put it in place, and then I bring my rendered image of the 3D lightsaber into Photoshop, and I do the actual touch up, and I add it into the image. So I've inserted all kinds of crazy objects and props and things into my photos that were never there, and in some cases could not be there because they don't exist in real life. I've added dinosaurs running behind a married couple, at their wedding day. Crazy stuff.
That's so cool.
So I love Blender. Yeah, and I have a lot of fun with Blender, just making sci-fi stuff. I actually have a page dedicated for my 3D art. Aside from my photography, I do 3D stuff kind of as a hobby. So if you want to look that up, go to facebook.com/newvisionfx. And that's where I post kind of my 3D art and my geeky, nerdy stuff that I make, and sometimes animations. So yeah, Blender is really powerful. It's open source, so it's always getting updated. It's always getting fixed. There's some really great forums out there for support and learning things. YouTube has got 1 trillion videos on how to do anything. Nice. That's pretty much how I've learned it, I know, you're in the University of YouTube, man, saving us thousands.
It's the best.
And no debt. I remember I did 3D stuff in my junior high days with illegal programs. And I remember later in college, my friend went to college for graphics, right? He went for 3D animation, and he was posting stuff that he made. I'm like, oh, that's cute. Like, I pretty much made cooler stuff than that when I was in 7th grade because I learned it myself. I'm trying to brag, but when you learn something on your own, and if you start early, you can be way far ahead of people that pay to get an education in that area.
Yeah.
At least in some areas of that field. Not all.
You just dropped the microphone and walked away.
Boom. Yeah. Blender's awesome. I love it, and I make lots of cool stuff with it. So that's it for me. Angela, why don't you tell us about your programs?
Alrighty. Well, most of the programs that I've used are art related, but there is one that is not. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that one. And that one is called Streamlabs OBS, or just OBS, because they're basically the same program. But I use Streamlabs, and what's special about that one is that Streamlabs is actually a website which allows you to work in tandem with streaming websites such as Twitch or YouTube.
Cool.
So it's all on the program. So if you're interested in like streaming yourself, doing artwork or playing video games, this program can allow you to screen record or stream yourself doing whatever to Twitch or YouTube, and it can do that all from the program. Like, you don't have to have like your browser open on your computer, so that way you can keep track of your chat or other multiple things on your website. So that way it saves a lot on like CPU usage, etc.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I haven't really used it so much for the streaming purposes yet, although I like to in the future. I've used it just mainly for screen recording, which is really good because you can see everything as it's happening live. My sister and I, we've actually gotten into starting to record ourselves doing Let's Plays, which is gaming for the internet, essentially, and releasing it on YouTube.
You want to drop a link, or how can people find you there?
I haven't gotten into that on my own channel yet, but we're recording on my sister's channel, and I'm in the videos too. So it's youtube.com/TiffyPop.
The 2 Fs?
TiffyPoop.
Cool.
So, but it's really cool because we also use green screen to show ourselves like in the corner, so we can get all that set up on the screen and keep an eye on ourselves and the gameplay as we're playing to make sure everything's running smoothly and looking as it should, like the background's not showing or anything. So it's been super helpful. It's even good just for recording audio and recording Discord and stuff like that too. So it's been...
I've used OBS to stream to Facebook.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a setting for it, and basically you get a token, which is like this long, weird hex code to numbers and letters from Facebook on your page. I think you can only stream from a Facebook page at the moment. So you get this code, you bring it into OBS, and you put it in there, and it basically connects. And as long as your settings are correct on OBS, which is like 720 video size, and whatever other settings, it'll connect with Facebook, and you can stream your screen to a Facebook page for Facebook Live.
I had no idea about that. That is pretty cool. Oh man.
I did a photo editing like stream one time. It was kind of fun.
Oh,
so
you should do it again.
Putting it out there. Yeah, I should.
Alrighty. Now to start off like the art related softwares, it's kind of like a 2-in-1 that I'm going to talk about right now. It's Medibang Paint Pro / Fire Alpaca. And the reason I'm joining them both together, I know they're pretty...
Fire Alpaca.
I know. The names are something else.
Like, how do you spell that?
No, you can try to take a guess there.
You gotta get hooked on phonics. Let Google autocorrect help you there.
Oh, yeah. But they're both made by the same developer, and they're pretty much both the same program, essentially, except for Medibang is also available on mobile devices, which is actually how it started out, and then they made a desktop version. So you can use this on your tablet, etc. as well. And I think the only other difference, too, is Fire Alpaca it has some animation support in it to where it can turn your layers into animation, like some sort of simple animation stuff. So there's that.
Cool.
But it's a super, it's relatively simple art program to use. It's got layers and it's got multiple brushes, and I would basically recommend it if as a step up to Microsoft Paint, in my opinion. Especially since they've gotten rid of Microsoft Paint recently. So
sad.
I know that is really sad.
That's my childhood.
I know they're trying to take away everyone's childhood.
That's where it all started for me.
I know. But I mean,
what kind of animation features does it have for layers? Like, what can it do?
I think it's just, it turns every single different layer you have into like a frame. So it just plays back your layers as like a just separate frame.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's basically something super simple, but it's there.
Yeah.
But it also has some different snapping options to it. Like you can have all your lines radiate out from like a central point. So if you're into like different kind of like comic effects, you can do that easily, or you can do different grid options super easy. So it's definitely got that over Paint for sure. So I would recommend that. Definitely for someone who's trying to get into digital art, but they're kind of overwhelmed by all the different features, say like different Photoshop type programs have, and you just want to do work with something to produce just basically like simple illustration style stuff. But I've seen people make some crazy paintings with it too, just from the very few brush options that it has. So
I'm always entertained how people like push the limits of freeware so much. Like,
I know.
We're talking about Paint. There have been like Mona Lisas and like crazy, like legit pieces of art recreated or made with just pixel by pixel in Paint.
I know. It's crazy.
And when you get into the more advanced freewares like these things, people make incredible stuff. I'm like, you could get like commissioned. You could get paid big bucks for this.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you're using
definitely.
a free program. It just goes to show you that you just have to have the willpower, some time, and dedication, and really a creative idea, of course, to push yourself. And you can do awesome stuff with these programs. Just because they're free doesn't mean you can't make good stuff.
Right. Like for sure. Like if you just go on YouTube again and just search for people doing like speed paints with these free softwares, you will be amazed.
That'll inspire you.
Oh, for sure. It's crazy. Oh, and also this program also comes with different comic creation tools as well. So there's that. It's got a lot to it. So definitely would recommend. Okay. So my next program is a vector-based program, which if people don't know, vector is what you use to create like logos and such, to where you can scale them up and down to any size you want, and it won't lose any quality to it. In my opinion, it seems to be the best freeware software that rivals Adobe Illustrator. And a lot of people seem to think that Inkscape really does rival like Adobe Illustrator pretty well. Like Adobe Illustrator, sure, it can speed up your workflow a lot because it streamlines a lot of different tools and such. But you can pretty much you seem to accomplish like anything in Inkscape like manually, as long as you have the patience. And there's a lot of good resources online to learn how to use it. I would recommend, if you're interested in giving it a shot. I actually did a commission already just recently to make a logo for someone with Inkscape. Cool. So yeah, I would definitely.
I've used Inkscape before. What I did was I brought in an image of, I think it was a logo, like just a JPEG image, and then I turned it into a vector by like Inkscape can scan an image and basically estimate and draw the curves and the vector lines where they need to be.
Yep.
So then I exported that vector file. I basically converted the logo into a vector, and I exported that, and then I brought it into Blender, and I turned that into a 3D logo where I could animate it and do like rotations and shiny stuff. It was really cool.
Oh man, there you go. It's definitely a very cool program. The only major con I can think of to it is that it can't output files in a CMYK color profile, which is what printers tend to recommend that you use if you're going to actually print out something. Because if you use like a regular RGB color profile, it tends to make the colors muddy if you're going to try to print it out at a print shop or something. But if you're going to make something for web use, like a web logo, Facebook cover photo, etc., I mean, Inkscape, there you go. It can do that for sure. And I think there's some workarounds to where you can have it outputs in CMYK, but I think you have to download some like extensions and such. But I don't know a whole lot about that.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. A lot of the freeware these days are open source, which means there's various people working on it and contributing to the code. And, you'd think like, oh, people are going to steal the code, but that doesn't really happen. It's people just help and make it better.
Right.
And, extensions and plugins are made by, various people that cover all kinds of specific tasks. So if you can imagine a major usage that you're not getting out of a program, there's someone out there that's probably written or is writing a plugin for that.
Yeah.
To increase the, the usability of these programs. Really cool.
Right. Yeah. It's super cool to see people get together, try to make all this open source stuff as good as it can possibly be. It's
they're sticking it to the man.
I know, right? Take that, Adobe. So my final program, and I think is honestly like the best art freeware that I have ever come across, is Krita. And why I say it's amazing is that it comes with a lot of like a nice variety of pre-installed brushes, to where it makes it has a lot of organic looking brushes: chalk, sponge, textured, particle, distortion. You name it, it's already in there, and it just runs so nicely. They just recently had like a really big update. They added vector tools to it as well.
Nice.
So you can now save in an SVG format, so you can create logos in that as well. I'm not sure like how in depth their logos, not logo, but their vector tools are, but it's there. And also they have like manga and comic book creation stuff in there as well, and animation. So they got a little bit of everything. I think they're trying to copy Photoshop a little bit. But I mean, it seems to run really nice. But it's got layers, different effects, different transformation tools already installed in it. I think they recently did a thing where you can scale your brushes up to like 10,000 pixels or something. So if you can get your computer to run it,
that's cool.
I know, it's pretty neat.
If you get a stylus, a USB stylus tablet, like that could you can do some cool, fun stuff with that.
Yeah, I think that.
You can actually get a stylus tablet for as little as $50. There's a website called monoprice.com, which has really cheap tablets that are decent quality. My brother has one, and he uses it for like concept art and fantasy landscape paintings that he does in Photoshop. I have the Intuos 2 Medium tablet, or Intuos Medium from Wacom, and it's like $200. The one he got was like $50-$60, and his has more buttons than mine.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So I kind of wish I had his, but that plus a free program, and you can do some cool stuff without spending a lot of money.
Yeah, and apparently there's some features that Krita can do that Photoshop can't, and I'm gonna have to check with you on this one because you're the one who uses Photoshop and I'm not. But apparently you can rotate your pen around as you're drawing, rotate along with it as you're using it.
Yeah, there's a rotation feature in Photoshop brushes, and you can connect it to like your pressure, or just you can make it jitter randomly as it rotates. So there is some rotation control, but it may not be as intuitive as Krita. I haven't tried that one yet.
Yeah, and it supports pen tilt and stuff, so that's pretty nice for a free program. Got editable grids, guides, symmetry painting.
Did you say edible grids?
No, editable grids.
Got me hungry.
Oh my gosh. Definitely a lot to it, and I would definitely recommend that as like the prime painting based free art program that I've come across. It seems to be really good as long as you can get past like any lag issues. Maybe I think it's pretty CPU intensive on some computers, especially if you're running on a laptop or an older one. So there's that con to it, but if you can get around that, I would definitely recommend.
Well, thank you. That's some really great programs for a lot of good use for art and artists.
No problem.
Well, before we get on to Nate's list, which I'm really looking forward to, we do want to take a quick little break and talk about the podcast. So we are 9 episodes in, and we've got a good handful of subscribers and people that are listening regularly, which is such a great feeling. And we are honored that you guys are entertained by our silliness and our random subjects we have on this podcast. We just wanted to clarify that we are on a few different social medias, which would be great if you'd follow them and like them or whatever, so that you can see some of our posts and also get engaged in the conversation with us. I'm hoping to have a weekly post for each episode where there's an open-ended question. We can all kind of chime in and offer our opinions and our experiences, and maybe something we talk about in the show. You guys can comment and let us know what your experience is or what you thought about it. So you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So we're on those social medias for the podcast, and then also our podcast outlets, which is where you can actually subscribe and get podcasts from. Of course, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, Pocket Casts, which is my favorite. That's what Nate and I use for weekly podcast we listen to is Pocket Casts app. You can find us on there. You can find us in Stitcher, and our episodes are uploaded in audio format to YouTube. So yeah, we're pretty much all over. If you Google the name of our podcast, you will find one of or many of our outlets. So we'd love for you guys to join us on there, and sharing the posts from those social medias, or even sharing a link to the podcast, on your social media accounts would be such appreciated, just to get the word out there, and share this kind of stuff with people you think might be interested in it. We want to build a community of people that love this kind of stuff, nerds and creative people and people who love entertainment and movies, and just get to know you guys and get some information out there. So we hope you like the show, and if you do, show us some love and share it a little bit. All right. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Let's get back to the episode. Nate, why don't you tell us about your programs?
Yeah, so my freeware, as we would call, kind of is in place of video and audio, since that's kind of my background. It's things I've been around. So the first one is going to be a nice, not very well-known video editor. And at that time in my life, I was not paying for anything, and I really just wanted to get stuff out there. Even though I didn't get anything out there, I just really created stuff. Anyways, so along the process, it's called a video editor. How generic. Anyways, you take a file, and I guess I had a little JVC like a camcorder. So you could put video files on there. At that time, I had a little camcorder, and you would take the SD card out, plug it in, drop to your desktop, move it over. But funny enough is a friend of mine, we could only do so much editing before it would freeze or crash. So we would work, pause, save, and then work, and then kind of plot how we were going to edit the rest of some stuff, knowing that we probably had a window before it crashed on us. So we would actually edit, save, then plot the rest of the time as we watched it crash, basically.
Oh, no.
And when I say not crash, I'm not saying like just freeze. Some of the icons would disappear. Our video clips would disappear. It would just like slowly disappear and dissolve. And then before you know it,
I thought we were talking about good programs.
No, but it was good. But see, and I wanted to really bring that up is because it made you, well, at least it made me, it forced me to basically know what to shoot, what to edit, and plot. And now that's crazy how bad the software sounds. But moving forward now where I am, a lot of stuff, if it's not already, planned out or scripted or something, you kind of know what you want to shoot. You know how to edit, and in the still moments, you know how to plot moving forward. And it was really weird going back and thinking like, oh man, I used a lot of freeware growing up. And I was like, well, they're going to give me some heat on this one because I thought we were talking about good stuff. And even though it wasn't good stuff, for the change of it moving forward, it's amazing. I think what Daniel was saying earlier, to kind of echo what he was saying, is I started young, started understanding like how to maneuver my way through plot and then move forward. I'm about to be 24, and I have friends that go to school for this, and they're like $20,000 and $50,000 in debt just to figure out what I learned on free software.
Sorry, guys.
And anyways, so then we move forward, and now DaVinci is amazing. I've used it recently, and I've watched the updated video. Guys, that's insane. Like, I pay for Premiere Pro. I don't know part of me is thinking like that's either a great backup source, but I recommend that highly. Like I was watching guys color grade audio, and I was just blown away how far we've come. But at the stage I was coming from, that software that was crashing, it really pushed me into the beginning stages of DaVinci Resolve. And I can't tell you what version I'm on, but it helped me learn to move forward, find better. And by the time I got to the next software, I was already good at editing, understanding clips, transitions, and so on. Basically the base, nothing fancy at the time. At the time I thought it was all that, but you look back, you're like, no, it's not that. It's really not that good. So that was interesting. I lost touch of DaVinci Resolve. And I think it's been brought up a couple times that a couple of friends of mine that do film stuff use it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad they're still around. Oh, that's cool. And I think Daniel and I have talked about it over many conversations in the past, like way in the past. He brought it to my attention, and I've actually used it on a friend's computer. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, it's DaVinci. And I was like, did you pay for this? And he's like, no, it's free. And I was like, what? And it looks almost identical to what people pay for Premiere Pro. And it's insane. So for those out there that, I don't really want to pay for something, DaVinci, if you want to go with the software that
it's okay.
Like you have LUTs, you have color grading, you have sound. I'm just like, wow. Yeah, mapping. You can layer your color grading. I was just blown away. So I definitely recommend that. And then I thought, when I was like, I thought I was hot stuff moving to the next software. There's this audio extractor. Now, I think another company took it over, because when I looked back on it, it looks a little bit different. I don't know if they just upgraded or different management team, but I thought I was some hot stuff, ripping stuff off of the internet. And then I was like, yeah, woohoo. I could put it on my phone. I could put it on my computer. I could play it anywhere I wanted. And if I didn't have internet, and I was like, yes, like I am the guy. And I probably could get in trouble, but it's okay. I wanted to listen to music and audio. And then I was like, oh, there's this other software called Audacity moving forward onto my other software. I love Audacity.
Nice transition.
I love Audacity. So I already thought I was really cool ripping audio off the internet. Then Audacity was entered in my life. So I already had the audio ripper. And I use actually Audacity for quite a bit of stuff, recording people. A couple of friends of mine that sing and rap, a couple poetry, spoken word. I can't believe that stuff is free, and all they ask from you is a donation if you want.
Didn't somebody record a whole album, like music album, with Audacity?
Yeah,
and mix it and everything.
There's a YouTuber, and I'll have to. I don't remember his name on. I always see his stuff, but I never remember his name, which is pretty much how I view YouTube. I just watch videos, and I'm like, wait, who was that?
It's too many to keep track of.
Anyways, so he basically was proving the point that you could take a $50 microphone and record vocals, instruments, and so on. And he mixed and produced the entire album. I think it was like more than 5 or 6 songs that he produced. Guitars, vocals, background singers. He was basically just proving the point that freeware is not bad. Now, there are limits. He said that he pointed that there will be limits and stuff, but he produced a whole album, I think more than 5 or 6 songs, with a cheap microphone and free software, and just put his stuff out there. And he was just proving to all those people that think they need high-end stuff, like, yeah, high-end stuff works. Paying for stuff, you get what you pay for. But it really doesn't, you could use freeware and cheap microphones and cheap equipment, and you could just have the same quality stuff. And so that was really motivating. So I've recommended Audacity, I think, to everybody. I know that was a very short list.
Well, thank you guys. That's a lot of good tips. I think we may even include a little list of these program names maybe on the episode description itself, so people can find these more easily. And I hope you guys, learn something and check these programs out. If you make something with them, or if you use any of them, let us know. Or if you have any other free programs that are, somewhat related to some of the things we talked about, we love to hear about that as well.
This is for people that just want to use freeware and stuff, and that's fine. You're trying to figure out what you want to do. There's so many different routes and options and opportunities, but don't let freeware scare you from what you want to do. And eventually, when it comes time to paying a subscription or full-time, one-time pay, one thing I've told Daniel that I've always been able to pay like a month-to-month subscription or a one-time pay was you add that price into like a gig or a project or something, so you can continue being creative and going down the path and avenue that you want to in the software world. And so for those that don't know really what they want to do, just stay with the freeware, learn it the best you can. And then as you move on, there's steps. You don't have to be fearful of paying per month. If you have 1 gig a month, you add that one price of subscription a month on top of whatever you're getting paid for the event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of comes down to a business mindset, which you generally don't have when you're starting out on a creative industry or career, which is basically means that you have to spend. Eventually, you will have to spend money to make money. So you look at paying $500 for maybe a big program. You're like, oh my God, I'll never be able to afford that. But really, you could do, once you buy it, you do a few jobs with the program and you make that money back, and then you've broken even. And then past that, it's all profit. And, things aren't even that expensive anymore. I remember back in my day, Photoshop used to be like $800. You bought it one time and that was it. Lightroom was like $170 and you had it. You had to buy upgrades after that. But now, at least with Adobe's programs, and a lot of other companies are doing the same model too, where you pay monthly, maybe $5, $10, $20 a month, and you get X number of programs. It's $10 a month for the Creative Cloud thing, and that means you get Photoshop on Lightroom, until you stop paying, but you get free updates. So when there's a new version of Photoshop comes out, when a new version or update for Lightroom comes out, you get that for free. And it's $10 a month, but honestly, that's like 2 Starbucks trips. Ooh. Or one small photo shoot for, say, $120, that can pay for your whole year. And past that, you're rocking and rolling. So you kind of have to think in terms of money and business profit when you get to that point in your business. When you get outside the hobby and you get into making money and you get into producing and working as a business, then that's how you have to think.
Yeah.
I hope you come back next week for our next episode. And again, share and subscribe. Have a great week.
I've sprained everything in my body. It feels like even muscles I didn't even know you could sprain. I'm like, that hurts.
That's why you just don't do sports. Yeah. Like me.
Don't sport. Sit at home. Sit on your computer. You'll be fine. I haven't broken anything.
There's a lot of pros to not being active.
Yeah, I haven't broken anything. See?
Yeah. I also haven't done anything, but that's besides the point.
I've gotten 2nd-degree burns.
I haven't done anything. I'm safe, but yet I'm
in my bubble. I'm safe. I'm inside.
That's awesome.
It's funny.